Good afternoon, everyone. You know, this is my first such talk. I usually never go to schools or to events to give a talk like this. And initially, I thought I would make a fancy presentation and show you guys what I do. But then I realized this talk is more about how I can inspire you to get out of your comfort zone. And ma'am, as you said, it's not just height, but in India, age is a big factor as well. And to start with my story, when I was in grade 11, how many of you have heard of the Space Settlement Design Competition? Your school participates in it, right? How many of you are participating in it this year? A few. When I was in grade 11, my family lived in Varanasi, and I lived in Delhi. And one time I called my dad, and I said, I want to fly. I don't want to take a train from Banaras to Delhi. I want to take a plane. And he said, if you ever do something which makes you go out of the country, I will put you on a plane. And so I started looking for all the international competitions that were available so I could qualify for one and go outside India where my dad would have to pay for my air ticket. And it just never happened. We found the Space Element Design Competition. We worked our dash off for a very long time, right? Our butts off for a very, very long time. My principal in Lakshman Public School, she was there to support us. I was here in Delhi. And we slept in the library for 2 straight weeks. We would work 24 hours. At that point of time, we had a Pentium computer that would take forever to render a 3D image, right? So we were sleeping in the computer labs, we were sleeping in the library. And the only question that we were constantly asking ourselves was, why were we doing it? And amongst the 6 of us, we all had different reasons. I was doing it for a plane ticket. 2 of my friends were doing it so that they could see America. 2 of them were space buffs, and incidentally, I wasn't a space buff at that time. So we were doing it for different reasons. But we worked extremely hard, and we did not qualify to go to the US. A lot of people feel that we would have been disheartened. But you know what? After working so hard for 2 straight months, we didn't really care about the results. We just wanted to get off the ride that we were on. And so we started preparing for our exams. And at that point of time, I really wasn't planning to become an engineer. I wanted to be a movie director. And I applied for a few colleges. I got accepted in one, but my dad wouldn't pay for it because in India, you either become a doctor or an engineer. Worst case scenario, you get to become a lawyer. That's about it. At least 20 years ago, those were my 3 options. So my dad wouldn't pay for me to become a movie director because he didn't want one in his family. He wanted to have an engineer because his elder brother had 2 engineer sons, right? How many of you are on that same ride where your parents want you to become something? Come on. There are so many of us, even now. Anyways, so I had to become an engineer. I started preparing for my entrance exam. I qualified, went to Thapar University in Patiala, and I found a bunch of kids because till now I had not been on an airplane. 3 years, right? 2001, 2004, I'm still not on a plane. So I want to get on a plane. And so I convinced my friends that we should form a team, apply for this fancy competition, design a city in space, go to America. 4 of my friends agreed. We found a bunch of students from Patiala, from a school, because every school we would go to, they would throw us out. We went in there, and our marketing pitch was we would take your students to NASA if you let us teach them some things. And they would kick us out. So one school finally agreed that maybe we are not bluffing, and so they agreed to give us 11 students. That year, we worked again for 2 months. We submitted our proposal, forgot all about it. In May, I was taking a shower in my hostel. On my cell phone, there was a call that came from the US, and the lady calling from there, Anita Gale, she was calling from number +12, right? In India, 12 is the area code for Noida. So my friend comes and he says, Noida se phone hai, koi ladki bahut hi fancy accent mein baat kar rahi hai. And he gives me the phone while I'm still showering. Because she was constantly calling. She was calling from the US, it was early morning in India. So I pick up the phone. And then she says, you have qualified for the Space Element Design Competition. Are you guys ready to come to the US? I literally, thank you. I was showering at that time, right? I dropped my phone. I was out of the shower in a jiffy. And 4 of my friends and me, we started dancing in the shower. I kid you not, that was a hilarious moment because the rest of the hospital was trying to figure out what is going on in that bathroom. So the thing is, to do something creative, to do something new, you need an inspiration. An inspiration can come from anywhere. My inspiration came from the fact that I wanted to get on a plane. It wasn't my love for space. It wasn't my love for going to the Kennedy Space Center. A lot of my friends later claimed that they've always wanted to become an astronaut. That wasn't my claim. I had never thought about becoming an engineer or an astronaut or going into space. All I wanted to do was get on a plane. For the next 2 months, we had to convince a lot of people, right? We wanted money to fly to the US, so we had to convince Air India to give us discounted tickets. We had to convince our parents to pay for those tickets. Incidentally, we needed money for shopping, we needed money for hotels, we needed money for a lot of other things. When you go to Orlando, you want to go to Disney World, right? We're going to the US for the first time, so we have to do that. We have to go to Universal Studios, have a lot of fun. So instead of doing a 4-day trip for the competition, we made an 18-day plan. And we had to fund it. At the end, to cut the story short, we got funded by the Department of Space, by the Department of Science and Technology. We got funded by CSIR. Our parents funded it. A couple of banks funded our trip. Air India gave us discount, and we ended up 3 times the money we needed for the trip. We land in the US. 3 days later, we participate in the competition with Edgewater High School. We ended up winning the competition. The Indian community in Orlando decided, because we had done such a good thing, they made everything free for us. So the hotel became free, Universal, Disney, all of that became free. So we ended up with more money. It was one of the best trips I had ever done. Not because it was free, but because I got to learn a lot. But one thing that I really learned was I wanted to come back to the Kennedy Space Center. I was absolutely in awe of everything I saw there. And that was the day I decided, no matter what, I am going to come back here. But to go back there, either I had to start a team, make them qualify again, or I had to become a successful engineer and go back to the Kennedy Space Center to work. But to work for NASA, you have to be a US citizen. Otherwise, they can't hire you. Export control. So what happened was, we convinced the organizers in the US that we could run Asian semifinals and bring a team from Asia every year. That would guarantee no matter which team from Asia went, we would tag along with them. So we get to go to the US every year. In this whole process, one thing that I learned was I could not work for someone else. I wanted to work for myself. The other thing that I discovered about myself was to do things with my own hands. And those are 2 very important lessons in life that a lot of our education does not impart to us. If you are not enjoying what you do, you should stop doing it. I was never found in my classes. I was the most outstanding student literally of my school because I was always outside the class. For some reason, my principals always supported that. Even the principal of my Delhi school knew I would be in the computer lab and not in the classroom. And none of them minded that. The reason for that is because they knew I wasn't wasting my energies. Right? So if you can convince your parents, if you can convince your teachers that you're doing a certain thing and you're not wasting your energy, I am very sure that they will support you. I've had some of the most conservative principals in my life, but none of them put a leash on me, ever. When I was in the US doing these competitions, the only thing that would always come back to bite me were all these Indian parents and teachers who would come to the competition and try and convince the other organizers that I was too young to lead the pack. Imagine I was 19 years old, running the Asian semifinals in Delhi at the American Embassy. Anita Gale and Dick Edwards, the 2 NASA engineers who are also the organizers, were at the American Embassy. And all the parents who had come to that competition, all the teachers were trying to convince them that Abhishek is not the right person to run the competition because he's too young. And this is something that happens to a lot of us. My sister is with me here. She runs the Indian company. And she gets to hear that a lot too, that you are too young. One, she looks very young. that's her other problem. But that's something that has always been a plague behind me. When I started my second company in the US at the Kennedy Space Center, that was something that was both a boon for me and also my curse. It was my curse because being too young, I was starting a new company at the Kennedy Space Center, so I got overconfident and I did some dumb mistakes, like trusting the other companies that we were doing contracts with. And they knew I was young, so they played me like a piano, and I got played. So being young is good. Do things that you want to do. Ask yourself why not do new things, but also ask why should I do them. Why not is important. It gets you out of your comfort zone, but asking the question why and the right kind of whys is also very, very important. Okay? Do you have questions? I know TED Talk is not about questions, but if there is any question that you have, I would really like to answer those, especially about starting your own company. I started mine when I was in grade 9. And I did that because my dad kept telling me कि तेरे मामा जी जब 15 साल के थे तो उन्होंने अपना business शुरू कर लिया था. That was 50 years ago. They had to do it. They had no education. But I had to do it so that my parents would shut up and not say this to me over and over. So I started designing websites in Varanasi. So if you have questions about how to start a company, why to start a company, you can ask me after the talk is done. If you have questions about why you should stop spending your parents' money and start doing things yourself, I would love to answer those questions. Because another thing that I really learned very early in my age was my parents are not going to fund my whims and fancies all their lives. Their job is to give me education, not to furnish my fancies. Thank you so much.